It begins here, on a fresh sheet of ice. A love affair with a game we cannot describe, only feel. In a country so vast, so expansive, it bonds us together and inspires us to push beyond limitations. It allows us to see what others cannot.
Let it go. Shot, score! Oh, Korea!
To conquer time.
Can you believe it?
And to reach the highest summit. Because when it comes to hockey in Canada, anything is possible. For Canadians, hockey isn't just a game. It's our game.
And on this Sunday morning on the West Coast, there's a look at Canada Hockey Place. We'll be going there shortly for the gold medal game between Canada and the United States. A partly cloudy, actually rather pleasant day here on the West Coast. And for one last time, I say good afternoon, good morning from the West Coast. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome to CTV's continuing live coverage of these 2010 Winter Olympic Games. You know, there's a temptation to exhaust the dictionary to find the word that describes today's gold medal hockey game. But really, there is no need. Someone has already done it for us. The late Bob Johnson was an American who knew Canadians and this country extremely well. He coached the Calgary Flames in the mid-1980s. Badger Bob, as he was called at the University of Wisconsin, also coached the Pittsburgh Penguins to 2 Stanley Cups and was head coach of the U.S. national hockey team. So Bob Johnson knew what hockey means both north and south of our border. And when it was time for that big game, Badger Bob didn't waste time looking for poetry. He summed it all up in one brief phrase. It's a great day for hockey. Indeed it is. For our RBC Hockey pregame report, let's go live. We join the panel and we say good morning to James Duthie. Hi, James.
Hockey pregame presented by RBC, helping create Olympic champions since 1947.
Good day, Brian. Good day, Canada. It has arrived. They have arrived. Team Canada about 10:14 a.m. local time, arriving at Canada Hockey Place. This is the day that Canada has been waiting for since 4 years ago when they were knocked out in Turin. There is Sidney Crosby, scoreless the last two. Patrick Kane has not been. He demolished Finns. The Americans have been perfect so far in this tournament, but that is the one guy right there, Ryan Miller, that is the main obstacle between Team Canada and a gold medal at the 2010 Winter Olympics. As we welcome you inside Canada Hockey Place for our pregame coverage of Canada versus USA. The words, you don't need any words. You know they're ready. It's a sea of red and white. James Duthie, Darren Pang, Nick Kyprios, and Bob McKenzie. Redemption or vengeance is usually a one-sided story, but both have something on the line here. The Americans, of course, trying to revenge or avenge what happened in 2002 when Canada beat them in Salt Lake. The Canadians trying to restore their good hockey name after what happened in Turin. They were 7th there, guaranteed at least 2nd this time. What's been the underpinning of Canada's success so far?
I think when Steve Yzerman took control of Team Canada under the tutelage of Bob Nicholson, he wanted to design a team that was going to be reliable from top to bottom. He wanted 12 forwards. In this case, you get 13 forwards that could play any single role. Guys that have been in Game 7 situations, guys that have lifted the Stanley Cup, guys that their eyes, aren't going to get closed when the lights are on them the brightest. Obviously, Sidney Crosby wins the Stanley Cup last year. We know what Scott Niedermayer has done, both at the international level as a junior player and at the NHL level and representing Canada. Eric Stahl has been a bull, and in the first 2 rounds last year, Steve Yzerman noticed how hard he played in 2 7-game series. Guys like Ryan Getzlaf carrying the Anaheim Ducks to a Stanley Cup in 2007, and the way he played against Steve Yzerman's club, the Detroit Red Wings. So I think the noteworthy factor is that following the game against the USA, Steve Yzerman went in and told the team, you keep going that way, you're in the right direction. You're playing hard, you're getting chances, and it's just a matter of time before it all breaks through.
His work began months ago as he put together this team. You knew there would be major changes after Turin, but he really changed the entire template and the makeup of this team.
Well, he did, and what he looked for was offense, and his player selections up front amongst the forwards have validated that. This is a highly skilled offensive hockey team that has not had difficulty scoring goals. In fact, since the NHL players started going to the Olympics, this is the highest scoring team of any nation. The most goals ever scored in the Olympics by any team by this edition of Team Canada. More than twice as many goals as they scored in the debacle in Turin. So the offensive player selection has been validated. But as good as Canada has been offensively, and they will have to continue to be good offensively, and have a 4-line attack with the Sidney Crosby line and Jerome McGinley playing on that line along with Eric Stahl. As much as they can get those goals, they cannot afford to give up a bad one in net. They cannot afford the defensive breakdowns. With the sharp line with Danny Heatley has been very productive. There isn't a single line for Team Canada that head coach Mike Babcock can't throw over the boards that can score goals. Since going onto the line with Getzlaf and Perry, Brendan Morrow has been an offensive and physical catalyst. All 4 lines for Team Canada can score goals, but at the end of the day, they've got to make sure they don't give up the bad goal or break down defensively.
We always talk about Canada's 7th-place showing in Turin. You forget that the Americans were a woeful 8th. But ever since Bobby Ryan scored the first goal against the Swiss, they have rolled through this tournament. Can you have imagined they would be undefeated and in the gold medal game?
No, and when you look at this team coming in, the youngest, just 3 guys off this roster have Olympic experience. Brian Rafalski, Jamie Langenbrenner, and Chris Drury. Other than that, who would have thought? Who would have thought for a second when Bobby Ryan scored this goal late in the first period against the Swiss that they would never trail in 5, I said 5 games to the gold medal. This has Brian Burke's fingerprints all over it. They are truculent, they are gritty, they are in your face, and they are very deserving to be here in a 1-game winner-take-all.
Well, the hottest item in Canada right now is one of these right here. A ticket to the gold medal game. I said this for the Russian game, but I think it's about, what, 16,000 people in here, and there'll be about 16 million people that will say they were here, especially if Canada wins the gold. We'll talk about the prices that people are getting for these tickets outside with Brian Rushaga a little bit later on as we continue to get you set for Canada versus the USA here for gold in Vancouver. Lots more ahead. Brian Burke, the general manager of the American team, joins us next. There is remarkable calendar karma going on for the Americans. Their first gold in Squaw Valley 50 years ago, and of course Lake Placid, the Miracle on Ice 30 years ago. And they're a connection. Ryan Suter's on this team. His dad Bob played on the 1980 team. Brooks Orpik, named after U.S. coach Herb Brooks. The Americans stun the hockey world. This will not be a miracle if it happens, but it will be a surprise. The Americans have been absolutely dominant so far in this tournament. Perfect 5-0 so far, 22 goals for, only 6 against. The only game that had really any major adversity was that Canada game when it was 5-3. The Americans have taken to the ice for the warm-up, and this guy has been the story individually of the tournament so far. Ryan Miller with a goals against average just hovering right around 1, and a save percentage that is off the chart so far. Brian Burke is, of course, the general manager of Team USA. Let's go right back to Game 1 against Switzerland, when David Backes had an incredible goal, and his physical dominance, did that right away validate the way you made up this team?
Well, I think people are looking for us to validate things, and there was never any question in our mind. We went to David Backes quite some time ago and told him he was going to be involved in this team. So to get some offense out of your grunt guys is nice. We brought him here to do a very specific job, and he'll get a chance to do that today.
Let's listen for one moment as Team Canada takes to the ice. Late as always, a couple of minutes after the Americans onto the ice for Team Canada and getting the expected rousing ovation. You carefully cultivated an underdog role for this team. But now you've beaten the Canadians. You absolutely demolished the Finns. You're perfect in this tournament. Can you still legitimately call yourselves an underdog?
Yeah, there's no question in my mind. The favorite team in this game and the favorite team in this tournament all along has been Canada. They're in front of their fans. They've got a great team. The first game we played against them, our team wasn't very good. Their team wasn't very good. They're both different teams now. They're teams that have found their element and are playing extremely well. I think it's going to be a great hockey game.
That victory against Canada early on was the U.S.'s first victory over Canada in 50 years. Everybody in this country knows what a win for Canada would mean. But what would it mean to the U.S. and what would it mean to you personally to win this gold medal?
Well, in terms of, I won't talk about what it would mean personally so much as for USA, the giant in this landscape is Canada. They're the best. They've dominated hockey in terms of their presence in the National Hockey League, all-star teams, all those things, international hockey as well. And it would be a tremendous boost for hockey in the United States if Team USA is able to win this game.
Before I let you go, it's been an unimaginable few weeks for you with the loss of your son, Brendan. Joanie Rochette, the Canadian skater, talked about losing herself in her skating after her mom, Therese, passed away before she skated. Have you been able at all to lose yourself in this and lose yourself in hockey?
Well, it's been nice to have something to do. You know, it's been nice that this tournament was so imminent after what happened, because to have something to do, you have to go to the rink, to have things to do has been useful. It's been therapeutic, so it doesn't change anything. It doesn't, you know, it's still very difficult, but it's helped.
We wish you the best today.
Thank you.
Brian Burke, the general manager of Team USA, as we continue to count down to gold. The U.S. has plenty of weapons up front. We talked about Patrick Kane. Zach Parise has probably been their most dangerous forward, and always lurking Phil Kessel. These are the challenges for Team Canada on the path to gold today. This is so different from other historic Canada hockey games when the USSR was this unknown, supposed evil entity. 10 sets of NHL teammates facing off against each other. Ryan Kessler of the Vancouver Canucks against Roberto Luongo of the Vancouver Canucks. They ran into each other yesterday in the Athletes' Village. Kessler said, "Good luck." Luongo said, "Not so much for you." He was joking, and as they're walking away, said, "Just kidding. I mean, good luck." Although Kessler didn't. We talked to the media about that and said, Luongo never wished me good luck, and tried to create a little mini rivalry that will end as soon as they get back in the dressing room. Darren Pang, Nick Kyprios, Bob McKenzie. We talk about the teammates facing each other, but perhaps the most intriguing matchups are NHL opponents. And let's start with Sidney Crosby versus Ryan Miller. Beat him once in the previous game, but has a bit of a successful history against him.
Yeah, he does. And despite going scoreless the last two games, he should feel very comfortable going up against Ryan Miller. Less than a month ago against Ryan Miller, had a terrific hockey game. He scored a hat trick. And the one thing about Sidney Crosby is he continues to do things exceptionally well besides scoring. It's just not simply comparing him to Wayne Gretzky and saying you got to be our best player and you need 3 or 4 points every night. This guy is often the first guy on the forecheck. He's often winning battles in the corner to make plays in front of the net. And today should be no different. I don't believe for a second that Sidney Crosby has to score for Canada to win the gold medal. But, hey, let's not kid ourselves. It would go a long way in solidifying a gold medal if he does.
On the other side, I mentioned Zach Parise has been the most consistently dangerous forward for the Americans so far. The U.S. will have last change, but what does Mike Babcock do to try to shut down Parise?
Well, there's no question. They have to have a game plan in place for a game-breaking player who we look at, and Canadians look at him when they marvel at his excellence. They say, well, maybe it's because he's the son of J.P. Parise, who was a hero for Canada in the 1972 Summit Series. But Zach Parise is all-American as far as he's concerned, and he's got game-breaking capabilities. Canada does not have the last change, so they know they'll probably be able to more than likely get a defense pair out again. And that defense pair is likely to be Scott Niedermayer and Shea Weber, although if it ends up being Duncan Keith and Drew Doughty, Mike Babcock won't be too panicked by that. But don't be surprised if Big Rick Nash comes off the bench in a number of situations to try to get a head-up matchup against Zach Parise. Mike Babcock's not going to completely disrupt the flow of the game, but Nash did an excellent job on Ovechkin. He did an excellent job on Marian Gaborik in each of the last 2 games for Team Canada. Since moving to that checking line with Jonathan Toews and Mike Richards, Rick Nash has been cast in a little bit different role. He's one of the top offensive players in the National Hockey League, but he's big, he can skate, and he understands the defensive awareness to play against great players who he can match offensively. So do not be surprise before it's all said and done if Nash is a factor in trying to stop Zach Parise.
Nick talked about Sidney Crosby getting the hat trick against Ryan Miller. Tell you what, Patrick Kane had a hat trick against Roberto Luongo in a much bigger game, the game that ousted the Vancouver Canucks from the playoffs last year. 6 goals in that series. He says he likes the matchup against Luongo. What's your take on it?
Well, he likes the matchup because he feels as if they can exploit Roberto Luongo if they get him moving east to west and opening up the wickets, opening up the 5-hole, forcing them to lunge at pucks. Patrick Kane right now has a lot of confidence. He started it slowly, but he had good puck possession early on when he was on the top line with Stastny and Parise. Easier said than done against a complete team like Canada for Patrick Kane. But when Kane does get an opportunity, you'll see him cut across and try to go against the grain. That little heel-to-toe wrist shot that he had last year in the playoffs, that backhander, getting Luongo to commit to the short side and go to the far side. This should be a great battle. Kane has confidence now, but so does Roberto Luongo. He has got some swagger right now. He's a very confident goaltender going 4-0 in these Winter Olympic Games.
We always like to do a tale of the tape and show you who has the advantages and disadvantages in every single category. The guys have broken it down for you. The goaltenders, you all give it to the Americans. You think Miller's got the advantage over Luongo there?
Yes, he does.
Defenseman split. Nick, you gave it to the USA. Why?
I did. I don't believe for a second the U.S. defense individually are better than Canada. I think they just play a simpler game around Ryan Miller, and it does give them an advantage that they don't have to go outside the norm.
All Canada at forward. Why?
Absolutely. 4 lines that can score, more depth than Team USA. But keep in mind here, when I look at the goaltending, it's worth 2 votes in a game like this.
All right, so we continue on Ryan Getzlaf. Remember, so many doubts about his ankle. Would he be able to play in this tournament? Jeff Carter was here. Getzlaf is playing and has been a force the last 2 games. Steve Yzerman is next. Kandahar, Afghanistan, Canada House, where our troops are preparing to watch Canada versus USA. Whenever a big game like that is on, they'll get up whatever hour of the night to watch. And this is Canada House here in Vancouver. We have word of lineups across the country, 2 hours to get into bars as the nation stands still, getting set for Canada versus USA. All right, here's Canada's path to gold, and just like 2002, a little bumpy at the beginning, that shootout win over Switzerland, the loss to the Americans, but they have been rock solid ever since. 5-1 and 32 goals, as Bob McKenzie mentioned, the most in the NHL Olympic era for any team, any country. Here's the general manager of Team Canada, Steve Yzerman. That bumpiness after the American loss, you came in and spoke to the team. What exactly did you say?
Can't really remember. You know what? We felt we had played. We all reiterated it to the players. We felt we played very well. You know, Swiss take us to the shootout. We thought we played a good game. The U.S. we played a very good game. Did a lot of positive things. So we just felt, you know, we respect our opponents. They're good players. They're good teams. That it's not going to be a cakewalk to a gold medal. And we just wanted to reassure them that we're on the right path. Just stick with it and stay confident.
You spent so many months trying to put this team together, put in this piece, take out this piece. That dominating game against Russia, was that as close to matching on ice what you envisioned on paper?
You know, we tried to put together a balanced team of players that can play in both ends of the rink, that we can be a strong offensive club and a strong defensive team. And we played well in that game, but you know, as good as we played, I don't know that the Russians played that well either. I think, you know, they were the 2-time defending world champions, and they basically went with that roster for the most part, and you know, they didn't quite play as well, I think, throughout the tournament as they expected, and everybody. So I don't want to get overly excited about that game. There was a lot of good things that we did.
So still waiting for that perfect game, maybe, for this team?
I don't think, you know, no matter what the score of a game is or how big you win, you always find something that you wish was better. You're always worried about something.
The last decision you had to make, and it came down to the last second, was whether or not you keep Ryan Getzlaf on the team with his ankle injury. You had Jeff Carter fly out here. How gratifying is it to see the way Getzlaf has dominated the last couple of games?
Well, he's been really good, and he's gotten better. You know, we had to see he played that game in Edmonton, and he said he was great. He proved it in that game, and then throughout the tournament, his ankle has been good for him. He's played well. A big, strong guy with good hands and a competitor who's won the cup. So we're fortunate. Quite frankly, I wish we could have kept Jeff Carter here and probably find a spot for him out there too.
Could you put your finger on one deciding factor, if you could play panelist for me right now, that will decide this game?
Composure. I think whichever team remains the most composed throughout the game will win.
We always ask the athletes when they win gold, how do you feel? And it's a cliched question, but I'm curious with you. Is it nerves? Is it anxiety? Is it exhilaration at getting to this moment?
All of the above. Yeah, this is really exciting. I've enjoyed it, but it's been nerve-wracking as well. But we wanted to be in this position. We're all enjoying it. We're all nervous. We're human.
Appreciate this.
Thanks, James.
Steve Yzerman, the general manager of Team Canada. For their thoughts, the guys who will call this game: Chris Cuthbert, Pierre Maguire.
Well, James, the Team Canada coaching staff is tight-lipped about strategy for a gold medal game. But, Pierre, we talked to the players yesterday, and it sounds like they want the same tough forecheck that they deployed against the Russians.
Well, when you think about what Team Canada did to Russia, they beat them 7-3, and a lot of it was because of the physical onslaught early on. Chris, guys establishing good first and second man presence, making the Russian defenders question when they had to go back and get the puck. And that allowed Canada to dominate board play. It allowed them to win the game 7-3. And it also allowed them to keep momentum and force the better Russian players to play defense rather than offense. When you have sustained board play off the forecheck, you wear people out, you dominate the turns, and you dictate the pace at which you want to play the game. If Canada plays that way, it'll be different from their approach versus the Americans in their qualifying game, and that should help Canada a lot.
The Americans know what's coming. Brooks Orpik mentioned yesterday that the Russians were intimidated. He said, we won't be. James?
Thank you, guys. One of these worth essentially diamonds today on the streets of Vancouver. Here's Ryan Rishaug with more on that.
James, as you can imagine, the demand for tickets to this hockey game is absolutely through the roof. We're getting reports of people outside with $5,000 to $10,000 trying to get their hands on tickets in the lower bowl, and they're not having any luck at this point. Upper bowl tickets, word of $1,700 to $2,000 for those tickets as well. A couple of boys from Guelph sitting over there had somebody offer them $2,000 a seat. They said they didn't even bat an eye, but maybe the real phenomenon in this whole thing is happening around the country. We're getting reports out of cities where people are lined up outside your everyday average bar for over 2 hours.
Fans across Canada hoping for a repeat of this. Remember, it was much the same feeling across the nation in Salt Lake. Canada had gone 50 years without a gold medal in hockey. We'd had summits on the game and what's wrong with the game in Canada. But Wayne Gretzky put together a team that won gold and ended the drought. Although if you factor in location, the Olympics here in Canada, this one certainly as big and likely to most Canadian hockey fans bigger considering what happened in Turin. Darren Pang, Nick Kyprios, and Bob McKenzie back alongside. We think of 2002, but this sort of rivalry is a new one, Canada-USA, in the last 20 years in hockey. It really probably kicked off in '96 when the U.S. beat Canada in the World Cup final in Montreal. So the U.S. wins in Montreal, Canada wins in Salt Lake. Is home ice really that much of an advantage, or does it just add too much pressure to the home team?
No, I think they've done a pretty good job. I thought they were a little apprehensive when the tournament started, and it's really about taking that energy and turning it into a positive. And I thought they did that very well. I don't think there's any more pressure on them today than there was in that quarterfinal game against Russia. And they came out fine. They channeled that energy, and I believe that they will do the same thing in this game.
Well, and you talk about that World Cup win for the Americans. That was done with the previous generation, the first true generation of American hockey stars, the Chelioses, the Roniks, the Amontes, the Medanos. And this group is a whole new generation. A number of these guys, Zach Parise, for example, beat Canada in a World Junior Championship in 2004. And this is their opportunity on this stage to make their mark. So they're looking to walk in the footprints of those other great American players that devastated Canada with that World Cup loss.
I think one of the keys, too, when you talk about home ice and you talk about pressure and what it means to have 18,000 fans, the majority of them obviously being Canadian hockey fans, there's a lot of American fans here as well, is to not play the game on your heels. I think anytime the fans can feel that there's uncertainty, that there's backing up, that there's pressure against you, that can also work against you. So it has been imperative for the Canadian team to certainly keep the puck moving north and not become a passive hockey team. There was shades of that against the Russians. There was a little concern in the second period. They kind of let their foot off the pedal. There were certainly some moments against the Slovaks where that happened. But man, when the foot was down and the puck was going north, these fans fed off that as well, and so did the players.
Let me ask you the same question about pressure, but frame it individually on Roberto Luongo. We talk about how he knows this rink better than anyone. They'll be chanting Lou, Lou every time he makes a save. But is it double jeopardy for him because there's so much on the line? The added pressure of being the guy and playing in your home rink.
But that's why you choose to be a goalie. I mean, you know, That's where you want to be. You want to be right there.
Hey, any player, they want to be go-to guys. And Luongo always envisioned that he would be in a situation where perhaps Brodeur would falter and he would be the guy. And it's strictly about visualization and picturing yourself in these key moments. Luongo's no different than any other guy playing in this game today.
This is why when you get your first mask at Christmas, you say to yourself, you don't say to yourself, man, I'm going to be a goalie. I'm going to be right there with the pads and the beautiful mask, and boy, I'm going to screw it up. You say to yourself, I am going to be that guy. I'm going to be special. Well, this is Roberto's moment right now to shine. And it's Ryan Miller's moment to shine.
The key for Canada, or for both teams, is for the goaltender not to give up that bad goal. And we've seen that in this tournament from Canada. That's been one of the shortcomings of this team in this very brief tournament where the margin for error is now virtually zero. Marty Brodeur did not have a good game against Team USA, and it led directly to the Americans winning the preliminary round. Roberto Luongo let in one bad goal, just one bad goal against the Slovaks, and it was like taking the brick out of the wall, and all of a sudden everything started to crumble down. A couple minutes later, defensive breakdown. The last 5 minutes, a Slovak team that couldn't generate anything was suddenly having Canada completely hemmed in, and if not for Luongo's last-second save on Dimitri at the side of the net, Canada's not even in the gold medal game. So for both Roberto Luongo, and it's true of Ryan Miller, but we haven't seen Ryan Miller show a single crack yet in this tournament. Now, could it happen today? Suppose it could. But thus far, Canada's goaltenders have shown little cracks that have led to problems, and the American goaltender, Ryan Miller, has showed no cracks to this point.
And that's why the U.S. comes in with a distinct advantage when it comes to the guys between the pipes.
I tried to get a hold of Luongo this morning to get last-second thoughts. I got a one-line text, and it said, there's nothing better than playing guilty. I'll let Canada interpret that, because I'm not sure if he meant he felt guilty about the goal he gave up, or that the team felt guilty about losing to the Americans. There's the great, Gordy, Mr. Hockey in the crowd. This place is full of every hockey legend and celebrities from all over the place. But so, perhaps he's talking about the fact they lost to the Americans, and so they have that extra incentive.
Roberto Luongo came into this situation knowing that Marty Brodeur was going to start, that Marty Brodeur had the ball. It was Marty's ball. Listen, Marty could have bounced back as well, but I like the mindset that Roberto had. I liked it in 2003 at the Worlds, in 2004 at the Worlds, and the World Cup in 2004. No reason to believe why he would wilt on this big stage.
Pressure on everyone, including the guy behind the bench. Mike Babcock now with our Ryan Rishaug.
Well, Mike, one game, winner takes a gold medal. What will your message be to your team before this one?
Oh, just simply we're ready. Keep doing what we've been working on. We've gotten better each and every day, and continue to do that. And, this is what it's all about. It's about having fun in these situations. It's about executing. And it's about determination and will and battling for every inch of ice. It should be a ton of fun. This is what everyone planned on. And now we have the opportunity. You want to make good on it.
What critical adjustment do you want to make based on the last game you played against these guys? Because they beat you, but you outshot them pretty handily. What's the most important thing to do different?
Well, we got to keep the puck out of our net. And I thought we had a tough time early going, and the execution between the goaltender and defenseman led to some forechecks and some opportunity. So we got to do a better job in that area. But I also think we can be much harder on their goaltender. And what I mean by that is we had chances, but if you have second chances and third chances and you're at their net and you're banging away, to me, that's the way to beat this kid.
You've coached in Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. You're about to coach in a gold medal Olympic game. How do you feel now based on, compared to how you felt the morning of that Game 7?
Well, I've coached in 2 of the Game 7s, actually. And, anytime you're playing for the Stanley Cup, it's an exciting time. And the one thing I do know is that if you spend all your time skating around with your hands over your head, you can't play hockey like you think you're holding the cup. You actually got to focus on the process, and then the rest will look after itself. So, the same goes here today. Is all you got to do is get prepared for your first shift. And the great thing about our game is you come back to the bench, you get to take a deep breath and get ready for your next one. And you never know which shift's going to turn the game, so have a good one every time you're out there.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
It's ridiculously obvious to say the first goal is important in a game like this, but is it even more so between these two teams?
Well, absolutely. 26 of 29 teams that have scored the first goal in this tournament have gone on to win. Absolutely. The Americans have not trailed at any point. No one knows how they're going to react if they do trail.
10 minutes until the drop of the puck in Vancouver.
Hockey Pregame, presented by RBC, helping create Olympic champions since 1947.
It's every hockey player's dream. Imagine it. capturing an Olympic gold medal against a bitter rival on the biggest possible stage. This truly is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
This is never going to happen in Canada again in our career.
Canada will get a chance to bring home the gold.
What would I do? Whatever's needed to win gold, I'd do.
Whatever it takes. Anything to win gold. Anything. I just give everything I have.
You name it, I would do anything.
It's the dream matchup. With everything on the line and everyone watching, Canada and the USA in the gold medal hockey game.
We got one chance to do it, and the whole country's going to be behind us.
February 28th, 2010, about 12:15 local time, Canada comes to a standstill. There are few countries in the world whose cultural identities are so interwoven with its fortunes in one sport. This is Canada, this is hockey, this is for gold. Canada, USA, on the last day of the 21st Winter Games. We are in Canada Hockey Place, which is full of red and white crazy fans. James Duffy, Darren Tang, Nick Kipriel, Bob McKenzie, welcome to the gold medal game. The Winter Olympics presented by Delicio. Let's bring it home. A four-line attack, crucial for Canada. They need to play with the lead. Bob McKenzie mentioned score early and no unearned goals against. What does that mean, Bob?
It means no softies. Marty Brodeur gave up softies to Team USA the first time around. Luongo gave up a softie to Slovakia. That led to a loss in composure, and this American team is too good. You don't want to give them any help as they try to win a gold medal on the 50th anniversary of their Squaw Valley gold medal in 1960.
And Bob, go get the first goal. Go get the second one. Go up 3-1, 4-2, whatever it takes. Plant the seed of doubt and let this team battle adversity, the U.S., for the first time in this